discuss. And this national plan for alternative protein that will be released next month by the Brazilian government is a way to structure the development together with the Tropical Food Innovation Lab that we are building the infrastructure. So I see a movement in the right path. So, but we are a little bit delayed in terms of in relation to Europe. But I'm very motivated that we are going to move correctly.
Yeah, of course. Do we have other questions? Meanwhile, we wait for Estefania to connect their webcam and microphone. So do you think that this gap will be reduced on this point of view? Because I mean, I can see that on the other part, you have an advantage in the biodiversity. So I mean, the potential is quite big for the market. So let's say the organizational part plays an important role, because if it allows to to have a same level, then the market might explode in a certain way.
Yeah.
Don't you think so?
Yeah. Before Stefania, just 1 minute. You know, when I show the Brazilian agriculture, if you say this collateral effect of being that we have a lot of biomass to work with, and upcycling products is a new trend. So adding value to residues, biomass, to create upcycling products also could be a good platform for Latin America and Brazil in particular. Yes.
Okay. Estefania, are you able to connect your microphone? Thank you, Paulo. I cannot hear you. Oh, Asmat, please help Estefania 1 moment. Estefania, just
please.
Yes.
Please click on the speaker sign, and you will have an option. Then you can join the audio. We can't hear you. Stephanie, we can't hear you. Can you click on the speaker sign and close to your camera, down, close to your camera sharing? You have option there.
Now, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. Thumbs up. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry. I am in the middle of the Amazon in Ecuador. So as crazy as it sounds, Paulo must know that here it's quite difficult to get internet connection, and also a place where there's not much sound. So I'm gonna try to speak very loud. This is a cliche, but that's how Latin America works. So we all know that. So I don't know, Salvatore, are you gonna present my PPT, or should I share it?
I will now give you the rights as a presenter, and let me present you now. Just 1 moment. Okay, so now we corrected everything. Now we're good to go. So here with us we have Estefania Gomez Endara. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she's a food waste expert. She has co-founded 2 organizations which work with food waste. And she has a Master of Arts from the International Institute of Social Studies in Rotterdam University with a major in agriculture, food security, and environmental studies. She is a community-minded leader and specialist with more than 5 years of experience managing projects in socioeconomic inclusion and environmental issues. She is passionate about combating food waste and the development of vulnerable groups through social transformation. So now, Estefania, the floor is yours. I put on your presentation. So just a second. Here is your presentation. I give you the rights to present, and you can go through the presentation. Activate your microphone, and I'll mute myself. I remind our listeners that you can always write questions in the chat, and we will answer in a second time. Thank you very much.
Great. So as Salvatore said, I am working on the food waste and food loss here in Ecuador, but I've done it before already in the Netherlands, which is the reason that I'm going to be comparing as well some data, which is interesting also for the public that is in Europe right now or is in other countries. So we might have seen already this graph here, this photograph, and we might have everyone heard about this. I'm very sorry about this number that 30% of all the daily food in the world that is already produced is being lost. If we compare it to what we purchase as consumers, so that means that 1 out of 3 apples is going to be lost, right? It's going to be wasted. What we've seen is that the majority of these products, almost about 40% of the products that are being wasted, is still in good conditions for human consumption. Therefore, there is the question: what are we doing with these foods, or are we doing enough against food waste and food loss? Yeah, this is typical here in the landfills in Latin America and in Ecuador. It's very common to find this, not in the camps, not in the agricultural fields, but also in regular landfills. Okay, always remember the first data that I told you about, that these 30% of all the food produced in the world is already lost. That means that it's about this big amount of tons, of million tons per year. And we know that if at least 1/4 of this food will be saved or will be rescued, the 870 million people that are undernourished could be fed. So this is an important figure that I wanted to discuss it today with you all. Is that one of the last data that we have is that in 2019, about the measurements that they did in this food waste index was that this million tons of food was wasted, but 61% was, or the majority was wasted throughout households. So that's why we're trying, and we're making a campaign and talking about this topic, because every human in this world is eating every day. I'm not saying that we all get the needed nourishment or the needed nutrition, but I'm saying that everyone is involved in the food, in the food supply. And the other percent are food service and short supplies, where the food is being wasted. But one of the most scary figures, I think, is that it just came out this year from the World Food Organization, is that 14% of all the food that is already produced, it never reaches the consumer. So it's already been wasted. Say in the harvest side, in the production, in the transportation side, it doesn't matter, but already it's been wasted. So it's never going to reach any human, which is very, very scary. So I put some figures here as well because I wanted to compare. In earlier times, it used to be said and analyzed that most of industrialized countries are the ones that are wasting more because of economic factors, because of other factors, right? But the latest data shows that also other middle-income countries are wasting as much as industrialized countries. So that's very important because I wanted to point out that it really doesn't matter if we are coming from an agricultural country such as Ecuador or in other cases as in Latin America. Brazil is a very good example as well from my previous speaker colleague. But we are wasting as much food as other countries. I'm going to show you another figure later on. But if you can see here, I have the pointer. Where is Mexico? Yeah, Mexico is wasting per year, per capita, I mean, by one human per year 94 kilograms of food. Meanwhile, if we compare it to other countries in Africa, it's very similar. Well, Kenya or the United States. So what I'm relating to this is like everywhere in the world, food is being wasted, and we need to do something against it. I'm sorry, this is in Spanish, but I couldn't translate it because it's not my data. But most of the food that is being wasted here in Ecuador, as you can see here from the numbers, it's as well as in other countries, is usually vegetables, fruits, and that has a lot to do with nutrition as well as malnutrition, right? And that's why I wanted to portray or exemplify this, because it is happening around the world. The data is very similar in other countries. Right, yeah. In Ecuador, what is happening now, and it's the example that I'm going to bring about today, that we are, the last diagnostic that we have, diagnosis, I'm sorry, it was in 2017. We don't really have a lot of measurements. It's not something that our current government or the previous ones have been interested about, nor the food industry. And that's why we have just very few numbers. And this is one of the last ones, which is saying how many tons per year we are wasting, but what we don't count or what we don't measure is what we're losing. I mean, what is being lost at the field, at the harvest side, at the production side. So the real data, it doesn't exist. And it's not only in Ecuador that it's happening that, but in other countries in Latin America. Here in Ecuador, we know that we have around 1.5 million people, which accounts for 8.8 of the total population, that are not accessing to the minimum nutrients and minimum food that they need per day. So that means that if we will be at least saving one part of the food that has been wasted and lost, we could be feeding people here in Ecuador. And it's the same in other countries, in middle-income countries. One very scary data as well is that, and that's why I presented it from this side, it's because Ecuador is holding the second highest rate of malnutrition in all the region. Although one of our main export incomes, or one of them, or our GPT is actually based on agricultural products, after petroleum as well and oil, we are having so many people here that are undernourished, and that's why we, in my project that I'm going to show you later on, we try to tackle this through food waste and food loss and making campaigns. Okay, so as I said before, we are wasting here in Ecuador 72 kilograms per year, more or less, which I showed you before the other data. This is very similar to countries in the UK or Denmark. The data is very similar. It's about 75, 77 kilograms per year. So there is not much of a difference. The difference is what are we wasting. Here we are wasting mostly fruits, mostly vegetables as well, and it's what we produce actually. Okay, very, very quickly, I try to compare the capital, like the most available data from our capital, which is in Quito. So why is because then I can exemplify what is happening in the country, which is very similar to other cases that I've studied in Latin America as well. Sorry for that. Yeah. So we're wasting around, just in one city in Ecuador, the capital. I'm sorry for the truck. It's a very cliche, but it's the reality. This is the Amazon. And we're wasting per year 36,000 tons per year. And per day, that means 100 tons. And mostly comes from the open markets or markets in general, right? Here in Quito, what we've counted, what we've measured. And what we've seen out of our own experience is that 40%, as I said before, is still edible. We can still use it for human consumption. Yeah, it's gone. And I'm very sorry. And also from other studies that we've done from our project, what we measure is that only 0.1% of all these food waste has a human in. What I mean about this is that just this very little amount, you can use your calculator now because it's a good exercise, is really how little we are doing as other organizations, as food banks, or the government itself, with what is being lost and what is being wasted. Are we distributing the food? Are we giving it to people that don't have access to food? Are we composting? All of these activities are counted in this percentage, which means that we're really not doing anything with the food that is being wasted and lost. I know that in other countries, as in Europe, like France or Holland, they have already these great laws that they force supermarkets to give it to organizations that are working with food waste and also with other social organizations. But here we're barely doing anything. We're barely doing something. I mean. And yeah, meanwhile, I always try to compare these two data because Quito has one of the highest poverty ranks as well, rates in Ecuador, and also extreme poverty rates, which means that people are living under $2.8 per day. So meanwhile, we're wasting so much food in this city, we're also having a lot of food under poverty. So what are we trying, or what have we been trying to do the past years here in Ecuador? I represent the social project and an initiative. We are not a food bank per se. We work with other food banks here, but what we're trying to do is making campaigns directly with food consumers and agricultural producers and farmers, and explaining them what is food loss and what is food waste. Because most of us, although my previous speaker colleagues talk about the topic, everyone is aware what is the difference between food loss and food waste, and even producers, they are being part of this chain, because we know that in the markets nowadays, one of the biggest challenges for the producers is to actually sell this kind of ugly veggies or ugly food that the market is not accepting anymore. And we as consumers are doing exactly the same thing. So that's why we're trying to tackle it from different perspectives. And we realize that as well as producers, as well as consumers, and as well as supply chains actors, farmers need as well this information. And since 2019, we've been trying to make these gastronomic events throughout Ecuador. And what is happening is that we are invited to different restaurants that are connected to this, ideology, I will call it, this new ideology of zero waste, and that want to make a difference, right, in the gastronomic chain. So what we try to do and what we try to teach, because we have several chefs with us working in the project, is that we try to use the entire product. I mean, you have here one typical recipe of a corn, of a maize, of a corn cake, but we're using the leaves, we're using the stems, the roots, because we've done a lot of experimental cooking in restaurants and also in places that we go. We try to use as much as possible and bring in, of course, the spell of the non-food waste philosophy. And this typical day for us, where we rescue food from markets, and I wanted to show you, because these, as you can see, is still fresh food. What we rescue, because we don't try to work with processed food, but mostly with fresh food from the markets, and because we try to show as well to people that even though some of these fruits that were not sold, maybe because they have some aesthetic failures, they are still edible, and that's what we're using. And we're trying to create very extraordinary plates and very extraordinary meals out of that, to show people that is in perfect use still. We give workshops as well in our events usually, and we have about 40 to 50 people coming to the event, and are usually for free. And we work under, we have a big volunteer network in our project, because this is out of social compromise, I would say. We're not trying to become an enterprise or a food bank per se, but what we are trying to show is why it's important not to waste food. And I'm in my last slide. It's a classical restaurant that is inviting us to cook. Yeah, and this is one of the meals and the recipes that we experiment with. As you can see, we use everything from the leaves. This is from a corn leaf that I remember. And yeah, what we try to as I mentioned at the beginning, we're trying to tackle as well malnutrition here, because it's a very big issue in Ecuador right now. And we are inviting always to our events to people or groups of people that do not have access to safe, to nutritious, and to clean food. And those are I would say, our main invitees, our main clients from the project, because, as I said before, everyone is eating, but everyone is also, everyone can have access to this knowledge of what is food waste and loss. And yeah, as you can see here, there is this is an indigenous woman, a producer, in the middle of the Andes, that we visited the past month. And you can see there, they are holding a huge carrot, which is very untypical for the normal consumer eyes, I will say. I'm sorry not to offend anyone here, but this is what we're never going to see in the supermarkets, not in any food chain, because aesthetically speaking, it doesn't appeal, it's not appealing, or it's not going to be sold. And that's what they as well think. And when we ask this couple of farmers, why are not they bringing it in a cheaper price to the market, and they told us no, because we are even scared that nobody's going to take it, or we don't even use it, and we give it to animals, and we give it or we compost it. And that's the big difference between other high-income countries, because here at least in Ecuador, as in other countries, is already compost a thing. We don't compost here out of a consciousness of saving the environment, of having other alternatives for food waste and food loss, but we compost it out of because we think it's the right thing, and we don't have other alternatives, and so we give it to the soil or producers. As this couple, they are just giving it to the animals before throwing it. They don't see as well the nutritious value behind this product, and that's what we're trying to tackle. Here, unfortunately, in Ecuador, there are no apps or food apps that are trying to tackle food waste and food loss. There are others starting other entrepreneurships, starting in Chile, as in Argentina, the ones that I know. And food tech is definitely an answer to these problems, at least in big cities. In the producer side, maybe not. Maybe one of the solutions that we found is that food education, as workshops, as campaigns, work better. And that's why I put the two concepts, because my previous colleague speaker talked about food tech, and in a macro perspective, maybe it's a solution, but I think in the smaller scale producing side, I think is still education where it could be saving all of these big problems. And yes, I'm going to be ending here for questions. You can follow us or have questions or contact us directly. And I thank you very much, Salvatore, for this invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Estefania. So if you have questions, you can already write down the questions. We have another event. First of all, that I remind you, next week we can do a roundtable about this topic. So I would like to invite everybody. I will send the link. We will send some emails, but I will share the link here at the end of the webinar now. And thank you, Stefania. Luckily, we made it on time. We should have had also Sarah with us today, but she had some problems. But we had so much to say. There's so much to say about the topic that we cannot have enough time for everything. They're asking for the contacts. Of course, speakers, you can share your LinkedIn or your email like you just did. So, of course, you can get in contact. And if you want a roundtable, everybody can meet each other next week, same time, same day of the week. We will send you the invitation. About questions, I mean, I've seen, well, we have a lot of food waste. I have a question because a lot of food waste is from the household, I've seen, and this impacts a lot. I thought like service, like restaurants, this kind of places, they would lose more. But actually it's the household. So it's more with the behavior of the people, everybody. So it's not just a problem in the service. Maybe in the service they want partly to save because they also might save money as well. I don't know. But what do you think are the next step to improve the behavior of people?
I think because I live myself in Holland for a long time and also in Germany, and what I think is that a lot of most of the people households are prompt to compost, right? Because that's the trend. That's what we try to do at the household levels, and I think there's still a step before composting. It's also asking ourselves, why are we buying and purchasing so much when we go to the supermarket? Because we all can have a say, we all can have a move in the food consumption chain, right? So we also through our campaigns, we try to give some tips to people on how to preserve food, for example, on how to use it as much as possible, the products, but also as well how to look at the before date, the expiration date from the products, because that's also something that we are not aware of, and it changes in depending on the country. So I think what is missing here is this consciousness about why do we need that much food? Because food is already being produced in a very big scale that is not needed, and we as consumers, if we will be asking ourselves that question more often, then we'll probably, the solution will be buying less, or at least be more conscious and preparing and organizing what we need to purchasing, not more, right? So to have less.
Yeah. Because I see, of course, the companies might want to produce more because in case they can sell more, they earn more. On the other side, the consumer must be more aware of what she is doing, and that's something that should work on an educational level, I think, also from the governments. So more awareness on the topic. But also I have many questions, but I don't think we're making time, because also about the topic about the most that's wasted is fruits and vegetables. But I understand also that these kind of products, they expire quite quickly. So if somehow technology can help us improve these rates and reduce the consumption, the waste of these products, which are extremely important, extremely useful for our diets.
Totally. It's always going to be a question of the egg or the chicken, right? who can do it first and who can do it more? And I think it's still it depends on the size of where we're talking about. So as consumers, I'm going to say it again. I repeat it because I think most of the public here is from the consumer side. Then we have a say, but from the producer and the food supply chains, that's another topic. That's another story. There must be laws implied in this. And if we want to change something, then it must be coming from a legal background as well. And as I said, it really depends on the site.
All right. So thank you very much. Now I take the presenter right because I have to give you your tree certificate because we have a project in Africa. We plant trees for our speakers instead of our speakers for our environmental project there. So here's your certificate. I will send it to you together with my thanks because this was really insightful today, and I really want to talk more about this topic. In my head, there are a lot of things going on. So I hope you'll be there next week so we can have another chat. Maybe because I read some people are looking for partners in Latin America as well. So you can always join us. I sent you the link in the chat. You can join. Usually, this kind of events, network events, are for the members. But I'm always willing to include more people to have larger roundtables, more interesting ones. And as an organization, we want to promote network and we want to do good. So please join and see you next week. Thank you, Estefania. Thank you, Paolo. And see you next time. You can always get in contact with me through LinkedIn or via mail. So thank you, everybody, and see you soon. So bye.